Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss about the reversal of ITC which is required to be made by the recipient of credit if the supplier fails to file his GSTR 3B. So normally when supplier files his GSTR 1, it appears in GSTR 2B of the recipient and the recipient avails the credit based on that. Now section 16(2)(c) is one of the conditions for availment of ITC, which says that tax should have been paid to the government before where ITC is availed by any registered person. So how does one ensure that the tax has been paid to the government? This is something which is important. So for this we are going to discuss this new rule 37A, which has been newly inserted with effect from 26th December 22. Let's understand this provision. First of all, we need to see the basic provision under which this rule has been enacted. So section 41 subsection 2 talks about the reversal of ITC in the first place if the tax is not paid by the supplier. This is effective from 1st October 22 and it was brought in through Finance Act 22. It says very clearly that if the tax has not been paid by the supplier, ITC is required to be reversed along with applicable interest in the prescribed manner. So how does one calculate the interest and where is interest applicable? That we'll have to see through the rules. And if the supplier subsequently makes the payment of taxes, so at the time of reversal maybe the taxes payment was not made, but subsequently the supplier makes the payment of taxes, in that case the recipient can re-avail the ITC in the prescribed manner. Once again, the manner is prescribed through the rules. Under this section, rule 37A has been prescribed from 26th December 22. Now this rule says very clearly that ITC can be availed by the recipient. Based on GSTR 2B, it can be availed once the supplier files his GSTR 1, but where the supplier has not furnished his GSTR 3B, and by which date should be considered that he has not furnished 3B, because in the same month if I am availing ITC based on 2B, obviously the recipient also, the supplier also might not have made the payment, might not have filed his GSTR 3B. So it is not possible for the recipient to track the status of filing of 3B on a everyday basis. So for this it has been stated that we need to check the filing status of the supplier's GSTR 3B by 30th September of the following financial year. So if we consider 22-23 as the financial year, by 30th September 23, if the supplier does not file his GSTR 3B for the relevant month, so we are talking about the relevant month in which he has shown in GSTR 1. So if he has shown it in, let's say, July 22 in GSTR 1, and if he has not filed 3B of July 22 by September 23, in that case the recipient needs to reverse the ITC by 30th November 23, right? So one needs to check the invoice date, if the invoice date and the date in which it has been shown in GSTR 1, if the invoice has been shown in, let's say, September 23 or September 22, in that case, let's say it is not furnished by the supplier in his GSTR 3B by September 23, in that case the reversal of ITC is required by 30th November 23. Mind you, if the reversal is not made within this date, within 30th November 23, then only the interest is applicable. So this is something which is very nice, that interest is not applicable by of 18% ad hoc. Interest is only applicable if the recipient fails to make the reversal of ITC by 30th November 23. If he makes the reversal by this date, in that case there is no requirement of interest, even if he did not have sufficient electronic credit ledger balance. Now where the supplier subsequently furnishes his GSTR 3B, ITC can thereafter be re-availed. Now how does one check the GSTR 3B filing status of the supplier? For this one can view GSTR 2A. 2B does not contain the filing status of GSTR 3B of the supplier. For that, one needs to look at GSTR 2A, which is a dynamic form. It keeps on getting updated as and when the supplier furnishes his GSTR 3B. So if he furnishes his 3B on, let's say, 10th of September 23, in that case, by 9th September 23, 2A will contain the 3B filing status as no, and when he furnishes it on 10th September, thereafter it would be containing GSTR 3B filing status as yes. So we need to track the 3B filing status of the supplier through our GSTR 2A. Another option is to check through the search taxpayer option on the GST portal about the which contains the 3B filing status of the supplier. But this is a cumbersome exercise because for every supplier we'll have to check individually the search taxpayer option, which may be a time consuming process. Also, there might be a lot of third party softwares, ASPs, which has bulk GSTN verification system, which fetches the data from the GSTN portal and provides information whether the supplier has furnished his 3B or not. This will become a very vital information for the recipient now. Now, after this rule has been notified, what are the steps which a recipient should take, which is beyond simply 2B 3B reconciliation? First of all, once it appears in 2B, then only the ITC should be taken. That is fine. Thereafter, if the supplier has furnished his GSTR 3B, then there is a restriction which has been provided in law from October 22 that there should not be a mismatch between 1 and 3B of the supplier beyond the prescribed percentage. So right now the percentage is not prescribed, that's why this rule is not yet applicable. But it has been stated that once this is prescribed, if the supplier's GSTR 1 and 3B has a significant mismatch, let's say the percentage prescribed is 10% and the supplier's GSTR 1 contains 112 rupees and let's say 3B contains 100 rupees. In that case, ITC would be considered to be restricted in the hands of the recipient, right? So this is again a very important issue, that supplier cannot simply furnish his 3B by not making the payment of taxes. Further to this, Rule 88C has also been prescribed, where the amount can be directly recovered from the supplier, and for the recipient, the ITC may be denied if there is a discrepancy beyond the prescribed percentage between 1 and 3B, right? If 3B is not provided by the supplier, if he is not furnished by the supplier, GSTR 3B is not furnished by the supplier, then in that case he can download then he needs to download GSTR 2A on 1st October, because he has to look at the option till 30th September whether 3B has been furnished. So he needs to download GSTR 2A from his portal for the entire year, let's say 22-23. He will download 2A. In whichever cases the supplier has not furnished his GSTR 3B, in that case he needs to reverse that ITC by 30th November. That means in his GSTR 3B he would be reversing it. So if he files his 3B within the due date, he would have to reverse it either in September month's GSTR 3B or in by maximum October month's GSTR 3B, not beyond that. So recipient needs to do that. Further to this, whatever reversals he has made, he needs to keep on looking at GSTR 2A and follow up with the supplier to ask him to furnish his 3B. Once the supplier furnishes his 3B, he can thereafter re-avail the ITC without any time limit. So there is no time limit. So even if he furnishes it after 2 years, still the ITC can be taken. For this, he needs to regularly track that particular taxpayer if he has furnished his 3B by any of the options provided above. So with this, we come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for giving us a very patient hearing.